An end to the war in Ukraine could mean a collapse of oil prices and massive leftover inflationary pressure. Without war in Ukraine, we might almost certainly be in an era of deflation. Imagine what that could mean for your portfolio. But first, we have to consider, is what's happening now in Ukraine an escalation or actually a sign that the end is near? Let's talk. You know, it's weird he's saying that Europe's in recession. No, France and Germany just came out and said, "We are not in recession! Keine Krise! We are doing good! Everything is great! Things are so great! We will send Panzer to Ukraine!" Okay, oh, I'm allowed to do that because I was born in Germany. And I also hold German citizenship. And a dual citizen. But what we should talk about is the fear that is being placed over the idea of sending Ukraine tanks and what the implications of this are. Some folks are making the argument that the United States sending Abrams tanks, 32 of them, and Germany authorizing other countries like Poland to send tanks and potentially F-16s from the Netherlands to Ukraine. There are two arguments happening. Argument number one, Ukraine is losing so badly that they need a bailout, and Europe is worried about their own safety. Argument number two, which is the argument that I personally believe it has a higher likelihood of being correct, but it could be wrong. Argument number two is that Ukraine is doing so well in fighting against Russia, and the Russian military is becoming so disorganized and fractured that these tanks will provide a mop-up force for Ukraine. Now, Russia does have a lot of anti-tank weapons, so they will have to utilize these weapons very carefully. However, the concern is either direction, whether Ukraine is losing or winning. The concern is that providing these sorts of weapons like F-16 fighter jets, which are Gen 4 fighter jets, they're nowhere near as awesome as the new fighter jets that are Gen 5s, even Gen 6s soon, that we have in America, but they're still pretty badass. There's an argument that essentially Russia will start World War III with nuclear weapons because they'll get backed into a corner. But I think that concern originally held tanks away, and a World War III scenario was exactly why Germany and the United States have actually not been authorizing battle tanks. The fact that now, rather than just authorizing armored personnel carriers, they are authorizing tanks, battle tanks, is actually, in my opinion, a sign that they are less worried about World War III. Of course, some argue that, no, BlackRock just wants to be able to rebuild Ukraine and make money there so that the United States government has to be part of the rebuilding process, and therefore they have to make sure Ukraine maintains its territory. And then, we get into sort of tinfoil hat of, the whole military-industrial complex is making a whole lot of money off this, which is true. And their lobbyists are basically forcing the U.S. and European governments to support the sending of more weapons so they can make more weapons. The Leopard 2 battle tank, for example, is requires a little bit shorter training than the Abrams. It's about 3 to 6 weeks of training per crew to operate a Leopard battle tank. Crew's about 4 people, 120 millimeter cannon, full digital fire control system, no manual, it's all digital. It's got 2 other guns, the 7.62 machine guns, actually both of them. It's got a driver's hatch, and just to the left of the cannon basically holds 4,750 rounds, unspecified thickness to protect it against IEDs and explosives. It is a diesel-powered battle tank that first went into service in 1979. Here's a picture of your Leopard 2 Panzer from the Germans. The Germans will send you Panzer tanks. That's redundant. But anyway, that's your Leopard. Then you have the A-12 Abrams battle tank on screen now. That was my attempt at Who's seen those little robotic wars on TVs where they fight the little robots, and the ones with the plexiglass and big wheels always flip around? I don't know, anyway. And the big metal ones with the hammers always seem to do well until they get flipped around. Anyway. The Abrams battle tank has a 120mm cannon as well, also digital fire control, also 4-person crew, but it takes longer to train with. Now, what's remarkable about these is they're substantially stronger than just armored personnel carriers, right? I mean, these are capable of taking down other enemy tanks. This thing's got 3 additional cannons on it, turrets on it. 12.7mm heavy machine gun, 900 rounds, 2 7.62 machine guns, 10,400 rounds, also unspecified thickness. This one's actually powered by jet fuel, which is really just a refined diesel. This is very different from your more armored personnel carriers, which generally come with turrets and are great for reconnaissance or urban combat, but less great for anti-tank or anti-armor fighting. And so at the same time as you have this going on, you have Turkey essentially indefinitely trying to block Sweden and Finland from joining NATO. A lot of folks are calling this essentially political theater for the upcoming elections, very close elections. You've got, this hope of trying to rally nationalistic and religious groups. Turkey is a member of NATO. They're trying to be a member of the EU, but they're not. They are demanding. They're making certain demands, like the extradition of certain Turkish journalists. Swedish courts have blocked that extradition. Polled by the Swedes, most Swedes don't want. It says 8 out of 10 Swedes don't want Sweden to compromise with Turkey. Turkey's now actually even going as far as threatening a war with Greece, suggesting that Turkish troops could descend on Greece suddenly one night, threatening Athens with ballistic missiles. This is kind of like a China-Taiwan saber rattling. The countries are obviously quite close together if you look at the map. Here's one on screen now. You've got Greece essentially wrapping around like a crescent moon around Turkey here. Turkey obviously holding the very important Istanbul Strait, old school Constantinople, connecting both the European continent and Asian continent, as where both of them meet. But you've got the Greece or the Prime Minister of Greece saying, "Look, we're not going to go to war with Turkey. This is all just saber rattling and nonsense, and this will end up getting resolved just like the conflicts we've seen with Italy and Egypt." That a lot of this is just nonsense right now. But you do have a lot of geopolitical posturing, should I say, going on right now. A lot of fears that these battle tanks and potentially fighter jets are going to aggravate war in Ukraine and potentially induce some kind of World War III scenario where Turkey attacks Greece, China attacks Taiwan, Russia uses nukes, and everything goes to hell. I really don't think that is likely, and personally, I believe that a lot of it is fear-mongering, but it does make for, news that needs to be covered. It is something that should be paid attention to so we can watch for potential inflection points either direction. But personally, I'm not highly concerned, and I actually believe that finally these delivery of tanks and maybe even F-16 fighter jets is actually a signal that the war is closer to over than potentially getting worse. So those are just my thoughts on Ukraine and Russia. Remember to take advantage of that it's actually the coupon code expiring on the 30th. Best pricing, guaranteed going forward, minimum 3 months. Course member live streams, you get lifetime access. So even in 2 years, you're like, I wonder what Kevin thinks in his course member live stream this morning. You could join. Doesn't matter. You have lifetime access to all the new content that we're adding, whether that's deep dive fundamental analysis work, TA work, fundamentals in real estate. When are we buying for real estate? What are we doing? Where are we buying? Course members get the edge on all this information. So check that out, linked down below. And email us for a bundle at kevin@meetkevin if you are interested in bundling.